Now, private car leasing isn't a new concept. In fact, it's a widely used car financing product around the world. And in more developed markets such as the UK and the US, leasing a car is one of the fastest growing forms of vehicle finance. With slow economic growth, more cautious lending by our banks, continued strains on consumer affordability and high inflation, is it really any wonder that consumers aren't buying so many cars anymore here in South Africa? So joining us on Moneyline this evening is Keith Watson, Managing Director of specialist private leasing company, that's Arriva. Keith, thanks so much for your time this evening. Car leasing, I think, is a great idea, but it doesn't seem to be popular in South Africa. Why is that?
Yeah, Siki, I think South African consumers have this innate need to own their vehicle.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things I think has been handed down through generations. They want to own the car they drive.
Yeah.
But if you're not financing the car or buying the car and keeping it for longer than 5 years, you're making the wrong decisions. You should be leasing that car. So use it. Don't own it is kind of the principle.
And generally people do. They go back once the what do they call that, 5-year plan is done?
Well, no. Yeah. So they may finance it for 5 or 6 years. I mean, the latest trend is 6 years with
the
balloon payments and all that sort of things. But you still find people after 3 years, 3.5 years, want to change the car that they're driving. 80% of the time, people want to get into something different after 3 years. It's sort of a pattern.
Okay.
But the risk of doing that is that you owe a significant amount of money to the banks after 3 years. If you run the contract to the end of 5 years or 6 years and you keep driving it thereafter, it makes sense.
Then that makes sense, yeah. So who typically leases cars here in South Africa?
So the guys who understand that they're using a car rather than owning a car. So they use the vehicle for 3 years and then get into something new. Those guys that want to upgrade to the new model on a regular basis, it's a lifestyle choice, I suppose, is the term. But those guys that do that understand the leasing model.
Okay. Can you explain it to us? How does it work?
The leasing model.
The leasing model, yes.
So as a leasing company, Arriva will take the end of contract risk. So we'll take the residual value risk. We'll put you into a car that makes sense for you, suits your lifestyle at that point in time. And when it comes to time to trade in or get into something new, we take the car back from you. You don't have to pay the bank a settlement. You don't have to get out of that car. You don't have to try and trade it in or settle it at the point. Okay. We'll take it, we'll retail it through our processes and get you into a new car. So you're always paying for the use of a car rather than buying the full car.
Buying it in full and then finding yourself maybe at the end of 6 years you don't have the 50,000 balloon payment that you thought that you were going to have when you were buying it. Yeah. Can you change your mind midway to say, right, I'd actually like to own this car? You can. Mid-leasing,
You can. We have an option for you to take ownership at a point in time. We have an option for you to upgrade or downgrade if situation has changed for you. So through the period, if you get to sort of 2 years down the line and you want to change a car, there's a process we have that allows you to upgrade or downgrade or buy it.
Okay. Do the dealer networks...
But why would you want to buy it?
Because you like it. We love owning things.
Exactly.
Even if we don't own it.
It's a culture.
It's a culture. But with our dealer networks and our financial institutions, do they understand the leasing model? Do they support it? Where would one go?
Yeah, so I think from the financial institution side, from the banks particularly, it's easier to do installment sale financing. It's just simple, it's quick, it's easy. There's no major work around it. With leasing, you have to work the information you've got. You have to understand the vehicle, you have to understand the market and the customer. So it's a bit more work to do. But the dealer network, whether they sell a car in leasing or installment sale or you buy it cash, for them it's no real issue, as long as they're moving the asset. But from the financing side, it's very different dynamics.
So how do we change that? Is that something that you think is going to change in South Africa?
It is. Look, UK, US, as you said in the beginning, are big into leasing as a principle. Consumers there use the car. They drive it, they use it, they hand it back, they get into something new. They never get into the point where they want to own, because they don't see it as an asset. South Africans, we see it as an asset.
Which I don't understand. The moment you drive it off the shop room floor, 10% depreciation done. So in this model, then, what are you paying for? You're just paying for the use of the car, which you pay for insurance. If your tire bursts, if there's any sort of maintenance, what happens in that situation?
So we have an all-in package that includes insurance, includes maintenance or service, depending which one you choose. It's tires, it's roadside assistance, a tracking unit for safety and security. So everything is bundled into one. You pay one amount. It's fixed for the term of the lease. And the people you deal with, you only deal with one environment. You want one set of individuals or one team. You don't have to go and look for insurance. You don't have to go look for all the various pieces that make up this package. It's
so
one.
The effort and the bit of the cost is taken out of it as well. What's the typical time frame that one would lease for?
The typical is sort of 4.5 to 5 years.
Okay.
But again, the average term of when people want to get out of that lease is about 3 years.
It's about 3 years. You get bored. We get bored.
Exactly. And a new model comes
And a new model comes around. Thanks, Keith. Keith Watson is Managing Director of specialist private leasing company, Arriva. Now, Boko Haram has been terrorizing Nigeria for years, but Africa's biggest economy is not the only one paying the price in the region.
Around the world, terrorism costs countries billions of dollars. Aside from the loss of human life and the destruction of infrastructure, terror affects foreign investment flowing into a country. Nigeria has been hard hit by Boko Haram again recently, and the resulting instability is affecting its neighbors. Cameroon finds itself directly in the firing line. Attacks have spilled over into its territory, and the Cameroon army finds itself regularly engaging the terrorist group. It's having a real effect on the economy, particularly along the border it shares with Nigeria. The cost of living is climbing rapidly.
Since these events began, trade has stopped. The Nigerians don't come to buy food here anymore. We're not producing anything. It's tough to make a living. Our products are lying in stock.
The country is running out of fuel, which is usually imported from its oil-rich neighbor, and small businesses are feeling the pinch.
We were fine before. We made a profit, but since they closed the border, we've had no more fuel.
And there has been a dramatic drop in tourism numbers. Maroa is on the road leading to national parks, but visitors who usually visit on safari have been scared off by the threat of kidnappings and bombings.
They say the far north is in the danger zone. So we need ambassadors to help us, to make people come. Without foreigners, our economy will suffer.
Unemployment stands at more than 65% in northern Cameroon, and with no end in sight to Boko Haram's attacks, no one here is holding out much hope for an improvement in that situation anytime soon.
For a glimpse of China's economy, just turn to the pigs. As a staple food, pork continues to hog a big part of inflation data that guides monetary policy, so much so that the Consumer Price Index, or CPI, is jokingly referred to as China's pork index.
Last year, weak pork prices weighed down consumer inflation, which was at 2%, well below the government's target of 3.5%. Worse, December's number came in at 1.5% year-on-year, and it doesn't look like pork prices nor inflation will pick up this year, according to pork analyst Shi Tao. But there's a little chance that pigs will lose ground anytime soon when it comes to CPI.
Chinese may be buying smartphones, which are more and more expensive, but that only happens once a year, and it is only several $100s. But they buy pork on a day-to-day basis, and it's massive.
More and more of China's small pigsties have been replaced with large-scale breeders with deep pockets, and that's driven production to historic highs at a time when China's austerity campaign has caused a belt-tightening at the tables. While the government continues to buy pork for reserves to stabilize prices, analysts say it's not enough to boost prices. So, with no big change expected either by breeders or eaters, Chinese consumers can avoid pressure on their pockets for another year.
Our daily question and answer feature is up next. Stay with us.